All right, I just want to briefly do this podcast. I don't think this podcast will be so long. Um, but then I want to address something. I think over the past month, about three people have sent me a video and they've asked for my opinion on it. And I just got the third person send me that video right now. And I just thought, okay, instead of answering people in individually, let me just do a podcast and just answer any other person that might have this question. So before you send me that video again, especially if you're a designer, just listen to this podcast and this will basically be my opinion. Now, this is my opinion. It is not fact. It is how I see things concerning this. And the video I've been sent is I think there've been two versions of the video, but they all talk or center around how design has changed from what it looked like in the 70s to what it looks like right now in the 2000s. And they're talking about the death of colors. The death of colors. And a lot of people are talking about how things were very colorful when you look at design of products or books of whatever, of fashion. It was very color centered. If you look at it, what was designed in the 70s and the 80s and some part of the 90s, they were very, very heavy on colors. Colors were played a very huge role, a very central role in design. But now, when you come down to the 2000s, recent times, design has been stripped of colors. So a lot of things are now white or gray. So you have that white or gray being a very dominant palette in a lot of things that are being designed today. They have this clean look. And so people are saying, has the world changed? Has the world changed? Have people changed? What is the cause of this thing? Now, we have different people that have different opinions on this. Some people say it is corporate organizations trying to save on money and just stripping things down to the barest minimum, and so that they don't have to spend so much on production. So people have different opinions, and I'm not going to briefly share my opinion on this. I really believe that a lot of us do not understand how influenced we are by trend and where a lot of trend comes from. And this podcast, I'm going to be talking about trend and why we need to be careful when it comes to adopting trend. Because a lot of times, a lot of us adopt things that we shouldn't adopt and that we do not know the true genesis. So we've become evangelists of dark trends. And my attention was pulled to this about 2 years ago when one of my mentees sent me a page he sent me a video. Actually, it wasn't a page. And in that video, two designers in the US were talking. And they were talking about another designer whose work they really respect and how different and unique and groundbreaking his work was. So they eulogized this guy. And me as a designer, I was like, okay, I need to see this guy's work. This guy that these two guys are talking about like a demigod, I want to see his work. So they mentioned his Instagram handle. And I went to his Instagram page and I saw his work. And I was disappointed. I looked at it and I couldn't see what these other two guys were raving about. I cannot remember the page because this was 2 years ago. I can't remember, but I think I did a podcast mentioning the page of the guy, but that was a long time ago. But then I can't remember the page. But when I saw the page, it was not coherent. A lot of his designs were not coherent. They were like things that my 3-year-old son would do. It didn't have any kind of order to it. A lot of it looked like scribbles. A lot of it was not aligned. It broke every design principle. But then he had a lot of views and he had a lot of following, and he wasn't even commenting. He wasn't replying people's comments. He wasn't being, he wasn't very sociable. He just put up his work and went away. But here he had loads, hundreds of comments, thousands of likes, a lot of shares. So I looked at it and I just couldn't get why this guy had huge following and why these other two guys had made this video eulogizing this guy. And then I started to read the comments. And when I read the comments, it revealed to me something I'm going to talk about today. And for me, it's the reason why design has changed so much. When I started reading the comments, I started seeing a lot of people writing, "I love your work. It reminds me so much about being high. I love your work. It paints the world the way I see it when I'm high." There were so many people that raved about this guy's work because it was an accurate description of them in a high state when they were on drugs or high on weed or high on whatever. But for them, they were so glad that they could see a page that could reflect their perception on the world when they were influenced or affected by drugs. And then I understood why his work was so popular and why he had so much engagement. It really wasn't about the design or the design principles. It was the fact that it was reminiscent of a state that people loved being in. And that's why I say a lot of us don't understand the influence on drugs on the world we live in. The influence that drugs has on the world we are living in. A lot of us don't understand it. We don't understand it. But drugs have a tremendous amount of influence on the output of what we call creative work that is put out there, whether in terms of music, in terms of fashion, in terms of technology, design, architecture. A lot of what we see is highly influenced by drugs. It is not a very popular opinion. But then if you look closely and you listen closely, a lot of people have said it. I've watched so many videos from movie directors talking about how drugs influence them in their style of directing a movie. That camera angle that you were saying, how did this guy see this thing? How did he see from this angle? That's so creative. A lot of you don't know that that's the angle he was at when he took that drug. So when it came down, it influenced the way he held the actual camera. A lot of the inspiration came from a state of being high on drugs. I read the book Steve Jobs by Walter Isaacson. A lot of people need to read that book. I will always recommend that book. It's a wonderful book. Steve Jobs said it too. He said a lot of people don't know how much LSD played a part in his creative process. LSD is a drug. It's an acronym for a chemical name, but then there's acid in the name. So they call LSD acid too. Very popular in the 70s and some parts of the 80s. Very popular. LSD. It came in different forms. Some came in tablet form, some came in paper form. And they will put it on their tongue and it dissolves on the tongue. This kind of drug is called a hallucinogen. LSD is a hallucinogen. It's a psychedelic drug. You all call it a psychedelic drug. That's the category LSD is in. It's a psychedelic drug. It alters perceptions, mood, and the cognitive process, how you see things. A lot of people that take psychedelic drugs will tell you when they're on psychedelic drugs, the world looks more colorful. Colors are more pronounced. You see the world like your eyes are a spectrum. You see patterns and colors, and everything looks exciting. The world looks so bright. It gives you a feeling of euphoria. A lot of people took LSD in the 70s, and it affected their work. The bright colors of things you see in the 70s was not just inspiration that just came to them ordinarily. A lot of it was drug influenced. Steve Jobs said it. He said all those early marks that they created that were so colorful was LSD. Took LSD and it just saw colors everywhere and just thought the world should be more colorful. So when you look at designs from the 70s, highly patterned. Look at their curtains, look at their rugs, look at their wallpaper. The patterns are incredible. These were patterns that they saw while high on drugs. And the truth of the matter is, a lot of us are influenced by a few. So the drugs taken by those few influences what is called trend that a lot of us adopt. So a few people took LSD, and many people started walking in the style of that few people. And that is how colors and patterns became such a strong thing in the 70s and 80s. LSD, psychedelic drugs, hallucinogens. Very common. It affected every single creative industry, whether you were singing, whether you were an artist, whether you were an architect, you were into fashion, interior design, everything. Every single thing. Drugs play a very, very covert yet strong role in trend. It does. We don't like to admit it, but a lot of us are highly influenced by drug addicts. You have people in the creative industry working in highly established positions, in highly established firms that are taking these drugs to get inspiration. And then they do things and we're like, oh, if this guy can do this, working for this ad agency, maybe I should start working like him. And before you know it, you become an agent of a drug trend without knowing it. Without knowing it. Now, why did it change? Because the drug of choice changed between the 80s, 90s, and the 2000s. People stopped taking LSD as much. At least the people in those top offices that can influence trend. People still take LSD to today. But those people, the real creatives that influence trends working with big organizations, stopped taking LSD. And then they started taking the white stuff, which a lot of us might know as cocaine. Cocaine became the drug of use. It became the go-to drug. Now, cocaine by nature is very different from LSD. LSD is a hallucinogen, a psychedelic drug. It affects your perception. Cocaine is pretty different. Cocaine is what is called a stimulant. Cocaine is a stimulant. Unlike LSD, it increases alertness and energy. It increases alertness. It allows you to focus. That's what it does. You can look at a doorknob and be fixated by the doorknob and forget every other thing around it. That's why a lot of people use cocaine when they really want to focus. What cocaine does, it strikes off all the BS in quote. All those things that are not necessary, and you focus on the core. And that's why when people that use cocaine, when they use it, it always seems like they have some very deep thoughts about very simple things. Because they're not living in an excited world anymore. They are living in a very deep, introspective, alert world. Every other distraction is cut off. Everything, you forget about everything. Food, sleep, all those things don't matter, but that very thing that holds your mind. And this is where the world became high on function and less about form. Form became a distraction. Function became the key. And so it became more about stripping down things than about playing up things. Stripping down rather than playing up. That's when design became cleaner. We don't need all this, we don't need this, we don't need this. Design became eliminative. Let's focus on what this thing actually does. And let's understand it better. A lot of it was influenced by the use of cocaine. There are so many people in the creative industry, high up there, film directors, record producers, artists, people in technology, fashion designers that use this stimulant called cocaine. And that's why it seems so obsessive about what they are doing. So obsessive. They are right in that world, so obsessive about that thing. Take away keypad, take away speakers, take away this, take away that, take away that. Let's get to the center of it. Cocaine. It's little wonder why white is the go-to color. When people see a lot of cocaine, they begin to express life in that color that becomes their environment. I can guarantee you, be on the high seas for 3 months straight and see how much blue you use in your work. Go and walk or do your work in a field, an open field with lush green grass, and see how much of grass or green or the green color you will be using in your work. Where you work the environment where you work influences your work subconsciously. White became a pleasurable color. It became a color of relief. So we started thinking white space, white this, white that, white. It wasn't because the human being changed and started liking white more. It's because the human being started becoming more influenced by a white product. Drugs influence us as human beings. People don't like to say it, but that is the truth. It does. It does. Before the advent or the boom of cocaine, a lot of people were using heroin for a short period of time. Heroin is a different type of drug. It's a depressant. Unlike stimulants like cocaine that increases alertness and energy, or hallucinogens like LSD that distort perception, heroin induces relaxation and drowsiness. And that's why at a point in time, it just seemed like design did not exist. There was no innovation, there was no breakthrough. It just seemed like design was not a subject matter. It was all about taking it easy. Don't rock the boat. Drugs play a very large part, a very strong part in trend. I'm telling you, it does. What's happening in some popular culture, whatever you are doing, popular culture, whoever started it, I'm telling you, there is more than a, a benign reason. There's a strong influence somewhere. A lot of the things you are doing are influenced by things you will never imagine that you've been influenced by. People haven't changed, but what people are putting in their body, what people are putting before their eyes, has changed. There's a story about Jacob working for his father-in-law Laban, and at the point in time wanted to stop working, and he had this agreement that he would take some of sheep with him when he stops working, and then he told his father-in-law that he would take any sheep that is spotted, a spotted sheep. Do you understand? And the father can take any of the clean ones that have no spots. So he came up with an idea. Whenever the sheep came to drink water, he put a stick that had spots there right in front of them. So when they bowed their head, they were always looking at that sheep. And before you know it, whatever they gave birth to became spotted. They were all spotted sheep. That tells us that whatever we focus on influences our work. Unfortunately, a lot of us have been influenced the wrong way. A lot of us have been influenced the wrong way. Design is not at its best. The best design is not clean design or minimalistic design. It's not that. The problem is that you've not keyed into your own spiritual influence. Some of you, you have spiritual influence, but you don't trust it. You don't trust it. You trust what Apple is doing, not knowing what is influencing Apple. You trust what Nike is doing, not knowing what's influencing Nike. You trust what cool companies are doing. But God is saying, I want to do something incredibly new through you. That thing you've been focusing on, I want to influence your work through it. But when you do it, you are insecure about it. You're saying, this is not what trend is. I want to do what's trendy. But God is saying, no, I want you to do something new that is not informed by somebody who is high on drugs. Do something new. Do something new. Yes, they will criticize it at first, but do something new. Do something new. Let your work be spirit influenced. I remember when I traveled to Canada, I came back to Nigeria, and a lot of people wanted me to do business cards for them, and they always wanted this plain white business cards, and I didn't like them. I just kept doing because everybody wanted you to do the safe business cards. So when I started a company with my friend. It was called Intersection. So I started this company, and he told me, Tola, can you think of a card? He didn't even tell me to think of a card. I was just working one day. We didn't have a business card. I was just working one day. And then I took this image of a rumpled up paper, squashed up paper that somebody had flattened out again. So it had all these imperfect creases to it. But when I looked at it, it was lovely. And then I took the paper and I used it as the background of our business card. It was a brown paper, but it was rumpled up, had rumpled up creases all around it. And I used it as the background, and I put our logo there, I put our information there. And I showed it to my friend, and my friend was like, wow, this is incredible. I've never seen a business card like that. I said, let's make this our business card. As a matter of fact, I don't think I was the one that said we should make our business card. It was my friend. My friend looked at it and said, this is incredible. I just did it as a design. He said, do you know this can be our business card? I said, are you sure? He said, yes. I said, but there's no business card that looks like this. And he said, yeah, but ours will look this way. So we decided to print it out. And that business card worked wonders for our business. Everywhere we went, even if they didn't want to talk to us, we just left our business card, they will call back. They always called back. They say, the only thing that made me call back was your business card. They always say that. Your business card made me call back. Some people still have those our business cards till today. They're like, I didn't see any of your work, but that your business card, that crumpled up paper, I'd never seen. When everybody was using white paper, minimalistic, clean design, you were using a crumpled up texture for your business card. But you see, that was a spiritual influence. That was us not trying to fit in. And that made us stand out. What I'm trying to say today is that the world can be one way, but you don't have to be that way. There is no standard for beauty. There's just a standard for the trend. Sometimes you need to have that courage to do what you are led to do. Because in doing what you are led to do, you are being influenced by something purer. You are being influenced by something purer. So in all honesty, those are my thoughts. I stand to be corrected if anybody thinks there are any other reasons. There might be other reasons, but I really feel this one reason that people do not pay a lot of attention to, but I think is a very strong reason. A lot of people are influenced by drugs. The drugs over the years have influenced people. There are other drugs now that are coming into play, pushing cocaine a little bit out of the way, and you will see how those things would influence the future of design. But then I dare to challenge someone here today who is not on drugs, who is led by the Spirit of God, to lean into that spirit. Do that thing that seems awkward. Do that thing that seems unpopular. Do that thing that seems untrendy. Be obedient to that spirit within you and create your path to what is good design. My name is Tola T.A. Alabi, and this is the TA Podcast.